All right, we are live. Welcome to Politics After Dark with Rachel and Friends. That's what I want the name to be eventually, but okay. So I am going to head over to the chat room and see who we've got. Is anybody watching? I don't know. Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce who we have. I am the marvelous Rachel. Yes, okay. So you've read about me. I'm a 5-year Capitol Hill veteran, worked in Ron Paul's congressional office until his retirement. And now I live in North Carolina, and I raise 2 little boys and 8 chickens. And that's me. And I'm a political junkie, as we all are here on this panel. And Sarah Remini is my BFF, partner in crime here in North Carolina. And she is the owner-operator of ConstitutionAngels.com. And she is fabulous. And she is an activist extraordinaire. She's been on the state GOP Republican Executive Committee, and she knows everything about how to be a delegate. And she was part of the whole Tampa drama. Sarah knows everything. I admire her greatly.
Off air though, but am I on?
What? What was that?
Because I'm off air. My little button. Oh! Everything's falling apart over here. It's
Oh no.
air though.
No, we're live. We're live.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. And over here we've got Kevin Rollins, who is an economist from George Mason University. Do you have a PhD now?
No, I just want a master's degree.
Master's degree. But
Yeah.
he's very, very brilliant and also a political junkie. And then we have from Beer and Bastards, Grant. And we asked first for the ugliest bastard, and we got no takers. And then we asked for the hottest bastard, and suddenly Grant volunteers. So make of that what you will.
Well, Ricky Ardella is probably the ugliest one, but I'll take the best looking label.
Yeah, probably so. Okay. So we're going to do things a little bit differently here for Politics After Dark. It is going to be a chaotic mess because I am going to invite anyone who is viewing right now backstage to come on screen with us and air their grievances.
Oh,
It's a
the airing of
Festivus
grievances.
miracle.
I love
Yes, the airing of grievances.
The
It's a
airing of
Festivus
grievances.
miracle.
You people
So,
really just
right here. I'm posting this in the chat room. Here we go. So, anybody on the Liberty.me website who is watching this right now, I think if I do that, I'm going to get echo. Okay. You're welcome to pop on over anytime and come on air with us and join in the conversation in more than just typing. But there are 2 rules. Well, there might be more than 2 rules, but there's 2 rules that I'm going to state right now, and that is that you need to have headphones so that there's not feedback. You need to have your webcam enabled, and as long as those things are functioning, come on, come one, come all. Okay, so let's get right into what we wanted to talk about today. Politics. The latest going-ons with politics. Of course, everybody's talking about Baltimore still. Should we talk about Baltimore first, or should we talk about Rand and presidential race and stuff? What do you think?
Let's go into Baltimore. I think we should talk about Baltimore a little bit.
Okay. Sarah wants to talk about Baltimore. Sarah and I were discussing just before the show that we might have a difference of opinion on Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney. Is she the state attorney general or just a state attorney?
The state attorney general.
Yeah. She's not like the top person. She's one of the people. Right. So I thought, I watched her at that press conference in real time. Without any sort of analysis from anyone else, I just thought she was brilliant. I thought what she said was exactly what should have been said. I thought she spent a lot of time running through the facts of the case and what her independent analysis had come up with, and I thought it was more than just a political speech, but apparently some people disagree with me. As soon as I posted that, I thought it was brilliant how she reacted, appropriately to, the chaos, obviously, in her city. Um, a lot of people came down on her as inexperienced and I guess naive and all that kind of thing. So, what do you think, Sarah? Tell me where we disagree.
Well, I definitely think that she's getting some flack for her inexperience. She's the youngest chief prosecutor in any major American city right now. So I think that she's automatically getting some flack for that. Some of it could potentially be because she's in, she's a female or she's in a certain type of city, or, things can be misconstrued, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as stereotyping her. And aside from that, she also started the investigation like the day after he was injured. So that was, 6 days before he actually died. And they thought that was, sort of like jumping the gun. And on the other side, I sort of see that we've had these major cases in the news, and we've had, situations in Ferguson and New York and Staten Island, where we didn't feel like anybody was doing anything quickly enough. And maybe she was just jumping on top of the case to make sure that she got ahead of the information. So the police officers had released, or the police department had released their report on what they had thought had happened, and 24 hours, or about maybe a little bit less than that, she released that she was going to charge them, and people thought that maybe that was a little bit too soon. But if she had been looking into it for, 6 days, almost a week, and had cooperation from the medical examiner's office, then maybe she has information that we don't exactly know.
I'm sure she does.
I do see both sides of it, though. Her husband is, a city council member, and he's a city council member in the area in which Gray actually died or was arrested. Not that he actually died in. So there could be some political implications there, but she does also come from a law enforcement family. I believe her father was a police officer, her grandfather was in the police force, and so were a few of her uncles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and she was very careful to say that none of that should be an indictment of the entire Baltimore police force, just that, according to her independent investigation, there was some things that there was probable cause, Right. I mean, it doesn't mean that those guys are convicted or should be convicted, and I'm frankly, if they get a fair trial and they're let off, I'm not too terribly upset about that, because I feel like we don't really have all the facts. We just have some preliminary stuff.
Yeah, well, I think the major difference is, too, that these are criminal charges. What we've seen in the cases before this have been mostly civil, and that's usually the sort of remediation factor that goes into, charging a police officer with any wrongdoing.
Yeah,
It's typically
that's exactly
in the
right.
civil court system. We don't see it in the criminal court system, and that's where this case was immediately different, is that we've got a very short period of time. We've got a state's attorney charging them criminally with, six officers with, I think it's 20-something charges.
A gazillion charges,
yeah,
like a lot of charges.
That's very serious, and that's something more than we've seen from any state attorney's office in any case in the past that I can possibly recall. So these charges are really severe in the way in which they're being brought, which is not civilly and instead in the criminal court system.
Grant looks like he has something to say. Are you itching to say something over there, Grant?
Well, I think that if the officers are guilty, and I don't know what evidence she's presented with. I just haven't really cared to look too closely. It sounds like they probably are. Then that's really unfortunate. But I don't believe that police brutality is a systemic problem. I think it is a nature of individuals responding to an environment that's been set up. But what really scares me and it almost makes me think may be more systemic than I believe it is how other officers are defending them and sort of maintaining this quote unquote blue code of silence.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of, and I live in Philadelphia, and there have been a lot of cases of police brutality here where that's been the same reaction. And I don't think you can call yourself a good cop if you stand up with bad cops. They
absolutely.
clearly at least have been to the point where there's fair enough evidence to question if they engage in criminal behavior. And that, to me, is a little disconcerting. But I do think that police as a whole have been sort of thrown under the bus as of recent.
Well, I think you bring up a very good point, though, that blue code of silence, if you're going to stand behind that line with your fellow bad officers, doesn't that also give you, that allows you as a cop to be painted with the same broad brush? And I think that's unfortunate because I agree with you. There's a lot of good cops out there. In fact, probably most of them are good and don't, set out at the beginning of their day to, like, maim or injure or hurt anyone, but at the same time, that the phenomenon of the nickel ride, the rough ride in the back of the paddy wagon, it's a well-known thing. People know that occurs and it's intentional, and those cops knew what they were doing. Rush Limbaugh was trying to. I listen to Rush because I'm a masochist, but. But he was trying to say that whatever statute was passed against those nickel rides, it was so new that those cops might not have even known about it. But I'm like, they knew what they were doing. They do that on purpose. They do that out of frustration. They have a frustrating job. I'll give them that all day long. But they have a tremendous responsibility. They have a gun. They are basically licensed to kill in the name of the state, and that is not something to be taken lightly. So, I mean, they have a huge responsibility to follow the Constitution and stay on the right side of people's civil rights. So, I mean, I see both sides of it too, but at the same time, you got to put your foot down somewhere, and Baltimore is like burning. And at what point are you supposed to actually respond to the concerns of your city, whether or not they're founded on anything? You should respond. You should be responsive. Are you wearing pants, Kevin? You just.
No, I'm sorry. I'm having microphone problems, and I suddenly realized that my headset was not actually processing the signals. It was going through my speakers in my headphone
But you sat up a little bit, and I was not sure. You're either wearing something tan or you're naked. So.
Well, what do we want to see, right?
Whatever you're into.
Let's not find out. Let's not pursue that line of questioning any further. But so I'm just a little bit mystified, how people can vilify Marilyn Mosby. I mean, did you listen to her speech, Sarah?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. What did you think at the time?
I mean, I found her to be sincere. I like that she said when she was trying to reach out, I guess, to the youth of the city and try to empathize with them. She said, "This is our time." She was saying things like "our" and "we." At 35 years old, I sort of can, sort of see where she would come at it that way. I'm 33. So, and I think that a lot of the people that are on the streets are probably, millennials or, up to her age. And in her position, I think that she really does, sort of owe some kind of debt of gratitude to that group of people that probably helped elect her. And she probably does feel those roots there. So I felt it was sincere. I just don't know if she maybe jumped the gun a little bit on this entire case, and maybe on the bringing charges just a little bit too quickly.
Rachel,
but see,
with her,
Rachel, can I jump in here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, please.
Are my sound levels okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about the headset not working. Anyways, but I guess my position on all this, again, I don't follow all the details of every news story, in part because of sort of my position on this, is that it's not for us to know all the ins and outs. Although, we have a theory of justice, we have an idea about what things are blamable and what things are prosecutable. And again, part of the problem we're dealing with is the fact that there actually is a divergence between what a lot of us think is right and wrong and what's actually going on in a lot of these cities, where police forces do see, I mean, not to blame particular officers, but overall, there is a lot of corruption and there's a lot of distrust between the community and the law enforcement officers in terms of what is actually, what is actually justified and what is not. And so, again, I always want to go back to, like, what are the general principles of justice? What should the rules be? And to some degree, even though we want to comment on the day-to-day and we want to absorb the news stories and comment on them, we just simply don't have that kind of information. But we do have, we can read, Adam Smith's theory of jurisprudence. We can read Larry Tribe on American constitutional law. There's a ton of books about there from Liberty Fund and other places, and trying to establish that idea of what is proportional and what is reasonable. And again, not to say that we have that as a perfect exact specification of it, but again, I think we get caught up in this day-to-day, the need to be a media voice to say, like, well, it should have gone that way or that way, but really, we're not really in that position to have that conversation.
Yeah, and as Mosby pointed out several times, it's an ongoing investigation, obviously, so all of the details are not public, but I guess one thing that's being bandied about just recently is about the knife that Freddie Gray was found with. Was it a switchblade, which would be illegal, or was it just a regular knife? And according to Mosby's investigation, it was just a regular knife, meaning it was totally legal for him to have it, and there was absolutely no probable cause for the police to even mess with him that day, other than, he looked at them and he walked the other way, which is understandable because he has, quite a record. But that day, he wasn't doing anything wrong, and they had no probable cause to arrest him. So, I mean, that's the latest on, the whole principle of, were the cops acting appropriately or inappropriately.
Didn't they find that there was some kind of spring-loaded element to the knife that actually did make it illegal under Baltimore statutes?
What was that found? Since when was that information put out?
Maybe today or yesterday,
Okay.
but that was put out by the police department. So you have to take into account that you've got the state attorney's office interpreting a law one way, and you've got the police department interpreting this law a different way over a knife that's clearly not a switchblade, because I think they would have come out and said that, but there's some kind of stipulation that they're hung up on at this point. And I think that they're trying to split hairs maybe, and that might be where, the problem lies, is that they're, sort of desperate to win this little bit of a battle, so they're splitting hairs over the knife issue. But it's been called into question, I think, just very recently.
Yeah, but I mean, the libertarian sort of anarchist in me says, if the whole case, if the crux of the whole case is whether the knife was legal or illegal, and the police department is saying, hey, well, it was actually sort of illegal, I'm like, okay, what's the evidence of that? Why is that being changed all of a sudden? Now we're changing our story. Just weird.
Well, the other problem that we have with our criminal justice system, and mind you that I got my degree in criminal justice, so I was maybe eventually going to go into some kind of law enforcement field, but I think that one of the major problems that we have is this sort of rule called the fruit of the poisonous tree, which is where if the police officers go in believing a certain thing and it ends up not exactly, being what they thought it was going to be, but it still turns out to be sort of illegal, they get away with it. And I think that that's an excuse that officers have started to use in probably the last 20 years, and especially drug cases and no-knock warrants and cases like this, where it's sort of like, oh, we saw the knife and we thought it was a switchblade, but really they knew from the beginning it probably wasn't, and they were, being a little bit more aggressive than they should have been. Well, they have
You get to play fast
this
and
thing
loose
that
with these things.
that to fall back on. Yeah, and I think that it was one of those rules or laws that was put in place with the best intentions, but with the worst possible outcome, which is, they've gotten to use it as a fallback for all these years, and it's very simple to use that excuse as, oh, we didn't know any better.
Yeah. One thing that bothers me in the whole left-right paradigm in discussing all this is it seems like, according to the right, the cops can do no wrong, and according to the left, the cops can do no right, and the mobs can do no wrong, but I mean, from my perspective, it's really hard to see any good guys here. What if they're both sort of wrong? I mean, there's no excuse for, rioting and looting and violence and, destroying private property. There's no excuse for that. There's no purpose to it. There's no benefit. And on the other hand, it doesn't mean that the cops are angels either. So, I don't know. I don't see any good guys here. Sometimes.
I don't either. And maybe they're just trying to get attention. And, Ferguson might have gotten so much attention because of the looting and rioting and the, immense militarized police force that was there. But that police force was brought on because of fears, stemming from the community and whatnot. So maybe these people took things to, more of an extreme than they normally would have in order to call attention to the situation. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not excusing it in any way.
Yeah.
I'm saying that maybe this was their, their kind of last resort to get, media attention, on their city.
I'm going to open this up. This question, anybody who has an opinion jump in, but does anyone feel like there might have been agent provocateurs involved here?
Do you mean state agent provocateurs, like that hired people in crowds to rile people up?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
No?
No, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, and that to me sounds like a conspiracy theory. I think if our government is so incompetent and everything else, I don't think that they have the competence to mastermind an evil scheme, like, let's say, a riot or, like, 9/11. But to the point, some of the points made earlier, I think that this hiding of the evidence, is the knife legal? Is it not legal? Are they doctoring? Are they not? Is really a bigger problem. Is bureaucratic incompetence. Police play statistical games all the time. I mean, you look at any big city, their crime rate jumps way up right before an election, and then, or like a year or so before an election, and drops really low again, right, like 2 days before the election, and you wonder why. It's because you play these little games. So really, what that is bureaucratic incompetence, and when that translates to the police department, that translates into these violent interactions, these statistical misnomers, this covering up of evidence, just everything we've been talking about. And what's important to that to note is that stems from overcriminalization of everything, especially drugs. So I don't think it's as much as again, I think it all boils down to an environment that's been created through a bunch of really terrible policies. And just the bureaucratic failure that offshoots from that, and just sort of the inevitable brutality and the violent conflict that comes from it.
I'm reading the chat room over at Liberty.me. Guest Catherine says, can we talk about Pamela Geller's false flag? Has anyone been following that whole story out of Texas, the shooting?
Oh, God. Are we calling that a false flag?
I'm sorry, what's the false flag? What are we talking about? What is the...
Pamela Geller's
deceit?
False flag?
I don't know that I would necessarily call it a false flag. Those were Catherine's words, but yeah. Oh my goodness.
So are you a part of the false flag?
Hi, Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
This is
I disavow any association.
No,
The more you
mine's
know it, the more we know you're involved. So.
Well, what happened was that ISIS claimed responsibility for the recent shootings in Texas, and predictably, someone's calling it a CIA plot to start another World War III, I guess.
Yeah. Well, okay. For anyone who's not been following, I'll try to give the rundown.
Right? That's what the issue is.
Yeah. At the contest, the Mohammed drawing contest, which was, extremely
tasteless, but free speech.
Well, I mean, it wasn't even tasteless, but it was just designed to incite
draw whatever you want to
something.
Draw. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily hold them to celebrate that, but why not, right? You can draw whatever you want.
Yeah, and it's been pointed out that the state gave a grant to the artists who put the image of Jesus in urine and elephant dung on the cross or whatever, and Christians didn't like it, but nobody went around shooting anybody over it.
Rachel, I was in a meeting one time with Grover Norquist, and he was telling the conservative meeting, and he said, piss Christ, that was the greatest thing we ever had. We could point and say, that's what government does. We don't have that anymore.
Grover Norquist.
It's a great Grover
yes.
Norquist.
Yeah. Hey, Nicole, can we hear you?
Hi,
Give us
I
a
don't
sound
know. Can you
check.
hear me?
Do you have any headphones that you can plug in? Oh, it's awesome to see Nicole.
Set up, so I might just actually sit and listen to y'all, because can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know if anybody's getting feedback because you're not wearing headphones, but...
I got her.
Okay, I'll turn it down a little.
Does somebody have a birthday at your house?
Yeah.
Aw, awesome. Happy birthday. Was it Genevieve's birthday?
It was Genevieve's birthday. So.
Yay. Oh my goodness, we missed it. Yeah, Nicole is my friend in Charlottesville. She can see Monticello from her house.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's how patriotic she is. And she's an actual attorney. We were just talking about lawyerly issues about the whole Baltimore thing, and I don't know if you have an opinion on that. Maybe you could share your opinion while I get a refill of my wine. Have you been following that? Anything?
Actually, you broke out for me, so I don't know if somebody else.
Nicole, just hold forth for a minute, and then, I mean, any of us could step in, I guess. I mean, Nicole,
Yeah.
who are you? I don't know you at all. I'll interview her for a second.
Okay, go forth.
Yeah. So, how do you know Rachel?
Rachel and I know each other from DC.
Okay.
We did a little bit of a Rachel, should I say, like a little goofy YouTube channel for a little while. We did some. We had some fun with videos and a little political news channel that we tried our hand at a few years ago.
So what do you do now?
I am a lawyer. I actually work for a boutique firm, but I work remotely from Charlottesville. Do primarily white-collar criminal defense work. This is the main focus, but we do civil litigation and government contract work and stuff like that too.
Do you sometimes purposely slip up to let the criminals get convicted?
What's that?
Do you sometimes purposely slip up to the criminals get convicted?
She
I'm
works
just kidding.
for the
I'm sorry, I gotta tell you guys, I don't have a great connection. So I'm getting like every other word from everybody, so I'm sorry. It might have been incredibly awesomely witty, but
my stuff's screwed up over here too. So I'm sorry if there's a feedback loop.
All of Nicole's clients are innocent.
Of course.
Of course. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on then to like actual politics and talk about the presidential race. Now, recently, Ben Carson threw his hat in the ring, and nobody on my panel gives a crap about Ben Carson at the moment. But some of us care about some of the other ones, and I know some of us are Rand Paul people. Some of us are not so much fans of Rand Paul, but I did ask Kevin if he would look into Marco Rubio for me because I found the process too painful at the
Oh, in
moment.
honor of that, I'm going to take a sip of my wine. Excuse
Yes. So
Well,
if you could, Kevin, give us your little book report on Marco Rubio.
okay, so I haven't, again, I spent about an hour on this earlier. My impression of Rubio coming into this was, I know he's a Tea Party guy. I know he's got a lot of support out there. He's a good-looking man. He's got a great voice. He's got a great sort of presence. In looking into him a bit, he's got better hair than me, certainly.
He's got okay hair.
But I do what I can. He got elected to the House of Representatives when he was 30 years old. No, sorry, the House of Representatives, the Florida State House of Representatives. And then I guess it was 36 or so when he was elected to the speakership in the House of Florida. And Florida's a huge state. Florida's a battleground state. He's a Cuban American. He has a lot of mojo coming into this. But what I don't really understand is exactly what he stands for. And again, other than the fact that he's got certain Florida assets, I don't really see. I think Hillary has her assets all over the country. Rand has got the Libertarian Ron Paul backing. Ted Cruz has some evangelicals supporting him. I just don't really see who's actually behind Marco Rubio, other than the fact that he's a good face, and I could see that the RNC would want to put him forward. But again, I think the question people are going to ask, they want to say, what is he about? Now, in answering that question, he did publish a book in 2006, 100 Ideas for Moving Florida Forward. That looks really delicious, Rachel, by the way.
Strawberries, I picked them today. They are delicious.
But again,
where is he on immigration? Is immigration a big issue of his?
Is immigration? Well, again, I think that he is he's obviously he's going to be more pro immigrant than some other people. But again, I don't have a real clear idea about what his philosophical sort of origination of his ideas are. And so, to me, that's what I would look for.
I'm sure we'll hear all about it.
I don't think there is any. I think that the RNC, I think this is an RNC puppet that we're seeing here.
Sure.
Puppetry.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason that we have, 22 declared Republican candidates at this point is puppetry. I think that they're just trying to thin the herd. And I also think that the GOP and the RNC are sort of, going back and forth in this battle because the RNC has changed so many rules and is making state legislatures change their bills and their laws to change their primaries this year for the first time in history. So the GOP and the RNC are not really in a very happy place right now.
Sure.
And so maybe the GOP is purposefully just trying to throw out as many candidates as they can at the RNC right now to sort of spoof them. And it might be working. I think that they've been grooming Rubio for a long time. I think that they think that he looks great. He's got this minority factor to him, and he's good looking, and he's got these great ideas. But like he had said, they're not coming from him. These are not philosophical ideals that he's held for his entire life. They seem to be just refed off of other candidates and sort of molded together into his own theory.
No, he's a good face, and I think this is the issue where I always sort of question about, I know FreedomWorks had a big thing a couple years ago when they were a big part of the RNC election, members of the actual committee, but I don't have a real sense that this is an open process. I don't think their own party has behooved themselves in terms of. I'm not a Republican. I'm independent. So I'm definitely not in the middle of all this. But I really think it ought to be open, and I think that it should be clear to members, how the sausage gets made to some degree. And I think Marco Rubio is somebody who, at least on paper, looks good to these people, and so they will want to support him. It's not clear to me. I'm not accusing him of being caught up with the RNC leadership in this cabal. I don't know, but again, I think that insofar as I think it's really funny. We see the Democratic Party, the so-called Democratic Party. There's one candidate. You got one candidate, and two third-party candidates facing, Jim Webb and Bernie Sanders. Strangely, Bernie Sanders has more mojo than we would expect. He's got more mojo than a lot of third-party candidates actually have. But
because he's not Hillary, and everybody on the left is looking for somebody who's not Hillary.
Sorry, go ahead.
What?
Shut up.
What was that last thing you said?
No, I was saying that it's like, the Republican Party does have a bunch of people who are vying and jockeying for this position, but as Sarah was just saying, that there's not this openness, there's not this process where it's not not even like American Idol, where you could go through a series of steps and have some judges comment on it, so that people could learn about who these people are, so that people can make a rational judgment about what's good for them.
No, they're groomed and they're put up to it.
Right.
We have every variety of Republican in the race right now. So we've got your extreme moderates and your light moderates, and then we've got your Tea Party lights and your extreme Tea Party, and we've got the evangelicals, and we've got the libertarian leanings, and we've got the extreme rhinos. I mean, literally, it's a scale from 1 to 25, and we've got every variety of whatever you feel like you want. And I almost feel like it's intentional to weed it down to a certain point to get the Republicans to all sort of like hold their nose and vote for somebody again, like everybody did for Romney. I think it's even getting worse at this point. I think that they're even throwing up new categories of nominees just to see how the public will take it. And I think that's something that we haven't really learned from the Democrats, is that they tend to really sort of rally a little bit more around their candidates, and we sort of haven't for a very long time. And I think it's because of the disconnection that we have in the party and how many different factions that we have. I think that we've talked so much about unity that we've forgotten to actually restore what our founding principles are, what makes us get along, and what to look for in a candidate. So instead of fixing those potholes, we've sort of just run all over the place and, found other excuses. And I think it's just made our party so much worse. Really,
can I be perfectly uncharitable to the major parties? And that would be that the Democrats have no ideas, and that the Republicans have different ideas, and they're separated, and they're not talking to each other. And so, it's the idea of rallying around a candidate. Yeah, sure. I always remember Clint Eastwood. In that last election. People are cheering.
Talking to a chair.
Oh, please don't
save some for Mitt. Save some for Mitt.
It was very awkward.
There's so little left. Just save some for Mitt.
But don't you think the left and the right, I mean, at least in the past, I guess this upcoming election is kind of a bad example, but in the past they've always had a wide spectrum of candidates. I mean, look at 2008 primaries. The left was all over the place, and so was the right. In 2012, again, the right was all over the place, presidentially speaking.
But the left basically has Hillary, and they are not rallying around her very well.
Well, I think the left has been always moderate to socialist, whereas the right has been sort of like a Rhino, the evangelical, and then like the Ron Paul, Ted Cruz kind of crowd. And that's now being more overrepresentative. And I do agree that Rubio was totally groomed. He's just a parrot. I had the unfortunate pleasure of meeting him one time when he was running for Senate in Florida. And he is definitely comes off that way. He's not genuine at all. And I don't think he'll make it.
I feel the same way about him, honestly.
How is his hair, though? How is his hair?
Oh, it's flawless. I wanted to kiss him on the forehead.
Personally, I think John Edwards actually has better hair, and I don't mind going on the record and saying that as a Republican. Rubio's hair is not all it's cracked up to be. I was at the RNC and saw it up close, and it was not that wonderful, but that's just my opinion.
I think Rand has wonderful hair. He's like the only presidential candidate ever that's had a perm.
Rand has great hair.
I hate that line.
Presidential hair.
So who on this panel likes Rand and why?
I like Rand.
Why do you like Rand? Are you pissed at him for playing politics too much?
I mean, I have a mixed story on that. I mean, I feel like I know he's doing what he's got to do, because the Republican Party, again, not that this diminish the Republican Party particularly, but it's terrible. It's so terrible, and there's the people who run the party are governed by the war hawks and all these forces of corporatism. And Mitt Romney can't understand what mass incarceration is. Like, what is that? Like, what are you talking about, Hillary? Mass incarceration? We don't do it in America. We only put people in jail who deserve to be in jail. It's like, that's the attitude. And I think it's terrible. And I think Rand Paul is the one person who's up there on the platform saying that it's all bullshit. And I think that's incredible. I think it's an incredible change.
Yeah, it is.
Pardon my French.
Now, okay, who has an opinion on the latest budget vote that he took? Who wants to speak to that?
Well,
Grant?
Yeah, so I know I saw the new budget the GOP submitted. I'm sure Rand Paul signed up on that. Repealing Obamacare and a bunch of other things. That's going to the president's desk, and I assume it will probably end at the president's desk.
He did. He voted against it. Rand voted against it.
Oh, he did? He did?
Yeah, he voted with the Democrats. And I mean, obviously, it's a procedural thing. It's a
procedural vote. Yeah.
Yeah, it's non-binding, but it's one of those things that the Republicans want to take to their constituents at election time and say, see here, I took this, I tried to free you from this horror that is Obamacare, and it didn't work, but I tried.
The vote in the Senate ended up being 53 to 44.
Mm-hmm.
And as for Senate Republicans, I think that Rand was the only holdout until the very end when the last vote was cast, and I think Cruz ended up standing with him. So you've got then maybe two. But the reason that Rand stated that he was against it is because the budget didn't actually do what it advertised that it was going to do, and he felt that there wasn't enough transparency in what this sort of budget provision was going to be. And that I
know he's always got his reasons, and I know if I give him a chance and listen, it's always plausible,
Here's my question about this budget question you have. So how many hundreds of $1 million over the tax revenues was this budget? So Rand is voting for it. And again, and he's in this terrible situation where with a bunch of people.
No, he voted against
economics. But the point is that they passed. Again, I don't know the particulars about this particular budget bill, but my impression is, in general, that they continue to pass deficit bills. And we're on the hook of that one way or the other. Even if it's only a couple $100 million, it's still it's a couple $100 million. You think about the resources that represents in terms of the experiences of everyday people. It's an enormous loss year after year after year. And so Rand Paul, as great as he is, he can't stand up to that machine. Now, when he goes to the White House,
he's not a dictator. He's a senator.
Situation. I'm sorry, Rachel. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I was throwing out there that he's not a dictator. He's just a senator. And even if he's a president, he's not a dictator.
Well, the bill would still take 10 years. The bill is still a 10-year bill. It would take 10 years to balance the budget still. So voting against it, is it that extreme? No, not really. You're talking about 10 years when we could actually balance the budget, in 1 or 2. So I think that's
No, I honestly, I want to disagree with Sarah's point right there. Is that no? We can actually get with inside of. I mean, it's like $3 trillion. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were inside that. We can get down closer to it. Obviously, we have to raise some taxes in the short run to make sure we're covering the deficit. But we don't have to live in that deficit reality. And we're running ourselves off a financial cliff. Conservatives want to talk about security. We are not secure if we're borrowing money from China to pay for these military projects over in the Middle East that aren't working anyways, but we're not safer because of that.
I agree.
I say that over and over again.
Probably a little bit more smoke and mirrors than we see. Maybe he's seeing something that we don't.
Oh, sure. No, I mean, again, that's the part of the federal accounting. That's why the Federal Reserve is resisting the audit. I mean, we've been fighting for Federal Reserve auditing for years now. We haven't gotten it yet. Why? because nobody wants to actually answer the. No one wants to tell you exactly how much money is sitting at the Fed and how much interest is being paid on the Treasury bonds to keep the big banks' money there. And that's why people can't get a loan, because all the money's at the Fed. Why would you give anyone a loan if you can get above market interest rates at the Fed to hold your giant pile of money? And so it's a bomb waiting to go off. And you know, the free market economists took a hit on this issue because a lot of us predicted that it was going to explode sooner, and it hasn't due to a lot of manipulations. But this is where we are.
Yeah. No, and I think it's great you brought that up too, because that's, you know, one of the differences between Ron Paul and Rand Paul is that Ron Paul was like, let's end the Fed like now, and Rand Paul is more for like auditing the Fed and putting more stipulations on them. So I think
let's talk about the Fed for a minute here, Kevin. Since you're a master's economist from George Mason, and that's pretty good. But I mean, let me ask you something. Do you think the Fed is going to raise rates anytime this year?
Okay, well, again, that's a very particularistic kind of prediction, and as a public choice free market economist, I don't really like to get into that. I would like to say
I'm not asking should they. I am asking, do you think they actually will?
Well, again,
I know they talk about it a lot. They say, oh, in June or whatever, you know.
Raise rates, like, so you're raising a rate because you're, you know, basically you're changing the price at which banks can borrow money from the Federal Reserve, and so my point about the money there is that they're being given, they have it's an open door. It's open, you know, they call it the window. You know, they come and get their money. So the question is, you know, does it behoove the Federal Reserve? Does the Federal Reserve make money by doing this? And so, I think that's part of the mystery. Is like, what is it? What are they motivated by? What are their assets exactly? And what's our position? We don't even know our position at all. All we know is, I mean, we can say over and over again that the federal government spends more money year after year after year after year, and that's a cost on us. That's the resources that we don't have because they're being expended in whatever projects. Like, maybe the projects are useful, but I think by and large we can see that they're not useful. And a lot of these agencies, the Homeland Security can mostly be abolished, and we have no impact on us at all.
Yeah, please.
But
please
those are lost resources year after year after year.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program, and Homeland Security is not even supposed to be temporary. It's
exactly.
Oh, it's so depressing. It's never going away.
It is. Yeah, I agree.
Even though, you know, it wasn't that long ago. We didn't have it, and we were, you know, pretty much safe at the airport.
What I would say to anyone who's listening is, if you want to learn about these issues, again, these are really hard issues, and it boggles me a lot of times. It used to be freebanking.org. Bradley Jansen and Chuck Moulton created. It's now over at Cato. It's called Alt-M. So it's George Intelligence running.
Did they get taken over by Cato? That's probably a really good thing for them.
That's the wrong way to say it. I mean, they joined up with, they made a deal with Cato.
Yeah.
And, so they're. I mean, I love freebanking.org as a name. I kind of like it more than Alt-M, but I totally understand the wanting to be part of that organization.
Oh yeah, that's some money right there.
Oh yeah.
That sort of solves a lot of problems.
Great, and if there's no, like, Larry White, he's at George Mason also, another just excellent free banking economist. And I don't know if you have show notes. I mean, I'm happy to share some links to these kind of things. But again, it's hard stuff.
Post a link in the chat, and if you can, the chat over at Liberty.me.
Yeah. I'm getting there. I'll shut up for a second.
I don't think the Fed is going to raise rates anytime soon.
They can't raise rates right now. They can't. They can't, at least for another year.
They're painted into a corner.
Yeah, they can't. The second they do, the whole thing's going to collapse.
Yeah.
I guess Deanna just...
Kevin, are you a gold standard guy?
But again, I want to encourage you guys to resist this urge to predict these moment-to-moment moves, because, you know, when you get it wrong, people remember that you got it wrong, but they don't remember that you got it right. Fred Bobari, for instance.
It's okay to guess. It's okay to guess. It's okay to be wrong.
Fred Bobari predicted the housing bubble. Like, he was like 15 years out.
It doesn't seem to hurt Paul Krugman. He's wrong all the time.
Well, that's his business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of his shtick. Like, that's his job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm not afraid about being wrong.
Said that the terror attacks on 9/11 were a motivator for the economy. Like blowing up buildings full of people is great.
The broken window fallacy.
That's wonderful.
Ah, good analogy, Rachel, and true. Sadly.
But yet he's the go-to guy, and his whole shtick now is that he will defend anything the Democratic Party does, and then that's where I think the Democratic Party. It's like I know a lot of good Democrat folks, and it's such a huge contrast to what they actually do.
He's an independent.
Oh, okay.
He's voting for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
No, see, if Rand is not the nominee, my guy is Vermin Supreme. Totally.
With
Vermin Supreme.
I'm gonna write in the Hulk and move to Pacific.
I want my free pony.
No, Rachel, you should talk about Vermin Supreme every chance you get. I mean, he is one of the greatest candidates. He's a tyrant you can trust. He's going to make sure you brush your teeth.
He's fantastic.
You brush your teeth. Awesome.
Yeah. Dental hygiene is part of his platform, as well as free ponies for everybody.
Oh, wait,
Very incisive.
I thought the free pony was Ron Paul's whole thing.
No, he's against it because it's not in the Constitution. But Vermin Supreme will give us all free ponies. He will.
Okay.
But remember, it's a pony identification policy. You must have your pony with you at all times.
I don't know if I'm down with that.
When the journalist asks him and says, so is that the only social welfare program you have? He says, I think that's enough. You really don't need to go any further.
He has these brilliant little one-liners. It's like, whoa. He's so funny. He's like the best joke candidate ever.
I love the guy. I love Jimmy McMillan. I saw Jimmy McMillan at CPAC a couple years ago, and he's as huge in life as he is on TV. The rent is too damn high, and it's like that's true. I mean, people. I feel like maybe people should be smarter than that, like that reality. But that's sort of our basic experience. Like if Hillary Clinton can go around and say like I'm doing things next year, you should vote for me. Like that's her camp. That was her campaign. Our opening campaign is like you're doing things next year, so am I. I'm running for president. And
I think
nothing.
I think people are smarter than that, but like Vermin Supreme is like as good as anybody. And the rent is too damn high guy. People are smarter than that. They know when they're being pandered to, but
no, they don't.
They know that it's all a joke.
They have no idea.
If they did, then we wouldn't have as many Bush families as we've had in office. I mean, come on. The people
that needs to end.
They have no idea. How do you guys feel about
for me, like Jimmy McMillan is actually best interpreted as the Saturday Night Live did, and it'd be cheaper to eat a roof, like an absurd proposition. Like it would be easier to accept something that's totally insane than to live in the reality that we're actually given, and that's what we're dealing with. I think people have lost their minds. They've lost any kind. I mean, I love the Democrats because they still want to tell you that oh yeah, the government's working for people. Like, who believes that? I mean, that's crazy. Maybe it should, but it doesn't. And the idea that the policymakers, I think about Michelle Bachmann, interviewing the NSA, she's quizzing them on the floor of the House, and her questions are like, oh, so you told us, that you did your job, right? Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, that's all the questions I have for you today. Go ahead and go about your spying. That's all we need to know, and that's what we're dealing with. And why people hate Republicans? Because people like Michelle Bachmann, why libertarians won't help people people we know who are trying to get in because of that, and it's because it's so stupid. But
I don't think the worst of them, though. I mean, out of everyone, I really don't think that she's the worst.
Well,
She's not the worst. She's
low bar. It's
just
a low bar.
the most
Unfortunately, she's
visible.
like more towards like the better of the worst than the worst. I mean, we've got a lot more to go to fall for Michelle Bachmann, unfortunately.
Rick Santorum, I love Rick Santorum.
Oh my gosh. You're being sarcastic, I hope. Yeah, of course you
No,
are.
am I being sarcastic?
What he said about Rand Paul this week and how he attacked every other GOP candidate. I mean, can we go to him? Can we deal with Trump? I mean, there's many bad Republicans.
What do you think about Huckabee's attack on Rand and him holding his Senate office while running for president? Huckabee said that he should drop the office that he doesn't really want.
He doesn't want as much and to go for the one that he really wants. I think that that's bullshit. I think it was a cop-out. I think it was a dirty play at Rand. It was obviously directed at him. He wouldn't say that it was him. He didn't mention him by name. He just happened to say the office and mention this situation. I think it was opportunistic, as usual from him, because he is an opportunist.
Yeah.
And I think that he's not getting any attention. I think he's not getting any love from the GOP and the RNC.
Nobody's excited
so he had
about
to come out
Huckabee.
with something that was going to get him in the headlines, and this was the best that he could do. And you know what? I'm actually pretty proud of it, because the fact that he made that statement and didn't even mention Rand Paul's name still made Rand Paul headlines, not exactly Huckabee headlines. So good for you. You're doing everything wrong. The staffers are terrible. And you're really good at bolstering Rand Paul support. So
has Huckabee's show been canceled yet?
Stay in the race, Huckabee, because we need you. You're doing a great job for Rand Paul. Thank you for your support, sir.
Has Huckabee quit his show then?
I think in part because I think Huckabee actually could be a very powerful candidate. I think that it's fascinating.
Oh my God! If he was running for the lead like cow in the Chick-fil-A commercials, yes, you're absolutely right.
Hey, don't take that away from Chris Christie. Don't take that away from Chris Christie.
That is really funny.
Oh, no fat shaming, no fat shaming.
That was more about the
Chick-fil-A. Like Marco Rubio,
just to be clear, I'm not fat shaming.
Oh,
Jeb
okay.
Bush, of the king. I mean, again, Rand Paul. I think Rand Paul has this. One reason I excuse his sort of bad libertarian behavior, and I really wish he would just stick to like being a great like libertarian representative in the U.S. Senate.
But he's not a libertarian.
Well, he's more libertarian. He's libertarian more than average.
More than average, but you remember that every day he's sitting at the lunch table with the Republicans.
Yeah.
Christian said Rand will drop one of his offices when Huckabee drops one of his sandwiches. That's so mean. But I was saying, has Huckabee's show been canceled? Did he quit his show on Fox News?
He quit his show to run for president, I thought.
He quit his show. Oh, I see.
That was sort of.
It was about to be canceled.
I expected pretty shortly after his quitting he was going to launch. He didn't launch though.
Huh. Well, it is about 11 o'clock, and I have to mention one thing. I have to mention that Julie Borowski is starting her show on Liberty.me tomorrow night. Is that right? Mike, tell me if I'm getting the details right. Mike Reed is supposed to tell me exactly what I'm supposed to tell you, because Julie Borowski's show is going to be really fantastic, and everybody should watch. And she is going out on her own. She has where did she work? FreedomWorks. She's left FreedomWorks and she's striking out on her own, which is pretty awesome of her. So she needs the community to make sure that was not a mistake and support her. I bet if anyone can do it, she can. So where's Mike? Tell me what to say, Mike. I think I probably said pretty much. She's having a show tomorrow, and everybody watch. And with that, it is 11 o'clock, so we are going to be off the air. We are going to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, and thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, guys.
And
thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, we're going to do this probably every 2 weeks to start with. And, oh, yeah, Julie Borowski's launch party. Mike was nice enough to post a link to this show in the Liberty.me chat room. So we're going to be back in 2 weeks, and I want to encourage everybody to be more brave and join me on air next time so that it can be more chaotic than it was tonight, even though tonight was pretty awesome. I enjoyed it very much. So I'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Yeah, ask a question.
Thank you.
When do we go to the barricades?
The barricades. Ooh, can we sing? Can we like wave flags and sing?
You know, like just turn over trash cans and set things on fire and you know.
Anarchy.
Fight society.
Well, you missed your chance up in Baltimore. You missed your chance.
It's just too far. It's too far to commute.
It'll be here soon enough. Just wait.
Maybe I'll stage a barricade here on my property just for you. We won't hurt anybody though. Non-violent barricade.
No chopping of heads.
No guillotines. No violence. You know, we do have like one of those log splitters, and that's pretty cool. And it doesn't hurt anybody. Non-violent protest.
We're gonna fall into it.
Okay.
All right, kids.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I still see you.